Hi fam, how's everybody? I hope everyone is good and had a good day. Sending lots of love as always. It's been a bit of a crazy one today, to be honest. Much like every other day, to be fair, but yeah. So I found this. I'm just going to play. I'm going to put it. This is. It's an audio book which you can get. I'll put the link into. It's free. It is by a gentleman of the name of Manly P. Hall. This is a lecture, actually, so there should be no copyright issues. Thank you. And it's called The Secret of the 33-Degree Freemason. If you don't know who Manly P. Hall is, he was a Canadian-born author, lecturer, philosopher, astrologer, and mystic. He's best known for his 1928 work, The Secret Teaching of All Ages. Over his 70-year career, he gave thousands of lectures, including 2 at Carnegie Hall, and published over 150 volumes. In 1934, he founded the Philosophical Research Society in Los Angeles, which he dedicated to the truth seekers of all time, with a research library, lecture hall, and publishing house. Many of his lectures can be found online, and his books are still in print. So I'm just going to play the first bit of this because it is it's very poignant and important for what's going on right now, because people have been warning about this for a long time, and nobody wanted to listen. Too busy in the rat race, or too busy just not caring, I guess, or not wanting to know, not wanting to see the truth, wanting to know the truth. And this guy, he actually, I need to double check this before I say it, actually, but he died mysteriously. It was either murdered or something. And unsurprisingly, when you hear the kind of things that he's talking about, because he's basically calling out all the same people. So,
we're going to open this discussion with a few lines from Rudyard Kipling. We had a teapot and let it leak. Not repairing made it worse. Now we've had no tea for a week, and the bottom's out of the universe. This is more or less the subject of our discussion. What's happened to the bottom of the universe? Always down through history, minorities have ruled. And today, probably 10% of mankind, maybe less, is administering the other 90%, very seldom having any direct contact with the needs and problems of that vast majority. Therefore, at this time, it is about the proper moment to remind everyone that the greatest of all the world's potential resources is the human being himself. We are the one important factor in the survival of our way of life. We are also, to a large degree, important for the survival of anything else on the earth, and perhaps for the earth itself. And yet this tremendous common sense majority has little or nothing to say about the causes and procedures of our civilization. We are completely controlled by a small group of professionals. Now, these professionals are not necessarily evil. They are not necessarily foolish, but they are not in direct contact with the world they serve. They have gradually isolated themselves in ivory towers of intellectual superiority and gaze down rather benignly, if at all, upon the world which they are supposed to regulate. They are simply incapable of the job. In the last 50 years, we've had the greatest advancements in science and education the world has ever known, and we're in the worst condition it has ever been in. It is because our entire attitude toward survival has very little basic contact with the essential humanity which it is supposed to guide, direct, and advance. There is a new humanism that is coming up, which it seems to me is well worth consideration, and that is the dignity, right, power, and authority of the folk. The folk is the great mass of people, and in its own natural environment and with reasonable consideration, this folk is nearly always right. There is some basic value there, which expresses itself through the simple and natural interests of average persons. The average individual wishes to be a good parent, a good citizen, and a good child. He wants to live in a happy environment. He does not really cherish animosities. He is not addicted to the desire to be killed in war, nor is he intentionally dedicated to an industrialism which gives him no opportunity to be a person. So all these situations mean together that the leaders are out of touch with their followings, and the followings, for the most part, have lost acceptances of their leaders. We do not want the condition to continue as it is. And yet, to not allow it to go on, we must search for new resources of solution. At the present moment, we are depending upon science to develop the nuclear resources of the world, but they have found no way of disposing of the nuclear waste which threatens to destroy us all. Thus, an attitude which can permit this to occur, that exceeds or excels its capacity to dominate the consequences of its contacts and contributions, is simply no longer suitable to leadership. There has to be changes. And these changes can only occur when the human being realizes his inalienable right to be human, and that he has within himself potentials that are far more real than any of the intellectual superstructure upon which he depends today. Man internally is part of the universe. He is part of the enormous diffusion of energies. He is as much part of the great plan as a star or a meteor or a comet. If he can go within himself far enough, he can find the laws of his own survival. But he has refused to have the opportunity to have this researching within himself. The moment he arrives in this world, he comes under the influence of this strange leadership of infallible errors with which we have all been afflicted. He goes to school, but he is not taught to think. He is not taught to use his own resources. He is told to accept, to read the textbook and come to the same answer. If he does not come to that answer, he will not graduate. And if he will not graduate or does not graduate from school, then he cannot enter the institutions of higher learning. And if he doesn't enter those and become proficient in the beliefs that they hold and become a willing perpetuator of the status quo, if he will not do all these things, he is an outcast. He is then regarded as simply being a mediocre person wandering around in vagaries. This type of situation is getting to be a little too difficult. We are all sympathetic as we see these great monuments rise to human ingenuity.
So that's just the first 7 minutes, but it's that everything that he talks about in here is, even though this was actually recorded, it must be, he was born 1901, died 1990. So it's got to be at least, what, 20, I say at least 30 years ago. And he's talking about that same stuff then as is going on now, and referencing the same people in the same ivory towers. So I'm going to put a link into it. He's done loads and loads of there's loads of lectures that he did and books, and it's really interesting, all to do with spirituality and finding the power within to achieve whatever you want to achieve. So I'm going to put all of that in, all those links for that. And that just popped up to me. I've listened to it before, but it just came up on my radar again today. So I thought I'd share that with you. I think I might have shared it with you before. The other thing I was going to say, I did share yesterday, which is these genetically modified mosquitoes. Now, this story here, firstly, there's several things. One is, how do you know what they're genetically modified to do? It doesn't say. And also, can you believe what the press is saying anyway? Another one. Anything that they come out with, either from the press or otherwise, you don't know whether it's messing with genetics. Now, I've gone a few stages back into this to look into it. So the genetic modification and gene editing is a software company called CRISPR. And I've mentioned this before, to do with DNA splicing, which is scissors. And that's actually the technology that they have used in the vaccines. The vaccines is a separate topic, but we're going to stick on this. So obviously, the people that created this editing capability, remember, this is on a atomic level. It's so minuscule, and they've managed to create a technology that goes in and literally acts like scissors, cuts up your DNA, takes out, and the premise of it was that they were obviously trying to create it to edit genes for genetic diseases, right? That's what the woman is saying. It's two women that have created this. That was their inspiration or intention. And I've seen her interviewed on Bloomberg, this woman, and I'm pretty sure that that's probably what her intention was in inventing this technology. However, there are cons to it in that she's created that technology that is then going to be used elsewhere by other companies and other people, and you don't know what their intentions are. And the other interesting thing behind this, so the CRISPR, the technology itself, was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates. And the CRISPR is the technology that is being used in the genetically modified mosquitoes. So what they are saying in that report and in subsequent reports that I've found, there's differing views, is that they've created a genetically modified lab grown mosquito that, at least in the information that's released, is supposed to inhibit the transmission of disease. But this gene editing is so advanced, listen, that they can switch on and off. They can switch it on and off, for one. They've got the technology and ability to switch on and off genes via proteins that are in these synthetic DNA, in the synthetic DNA. That is the level of technology that we're at. Like, it's mind-boggling. So they can switch on and off the function of individual genes within a DNA, and this is completely genetic. You know, these are lab-grown mosquitoes, males only, and they also have a fluorescent protein inside them, so that they can, they say, can monitor these mosquitoes in the wild. And what they are saying is that they're only doing it breeding male genetically modified mosquitoes, and these genetically modified males go into the wild, mate with females, and kill them. And they say that they shouldn't produce any offspring, but yet offspring have been made. So that means then that the genetically modified population of mosquitoes are now creating this like hybrid version of mosquito, which they actually have not monitored or tested or know what they are capable of. And bearing in mind the basis of this, of this whole thing, of this whole genetically modified mosquitoes, so they say, is that it's to lower transmission of disease and reduce the need for pesticides. Okay, it sounds plausible, right? Well, let me read you this. So let me just find this. So the original article was on CNN, right? So 750 million mosquitoes. This is just happened or just been approved. Well, I'm not sure whether they've actually been released yet. So 750 million of these mosquitoes are being released into Florida. So this is what this says, right? Sorry, just bear with me. A plan to release over 750 million genetically modified mosquitoes into the Florida Keys in 2021 and 22 received final approval from local authorities against the objection of many of the residents and a coalition of environmental advocacy groups. So, first point on that. Why are they doing something that everybody doesn't want? Okay? Why are they doing it? No one wants it. Right. With all the urgent crisis facing our nation and the state of Florida, the COVID-19 panic, racial injustice, climate change, the administration has used tax dollars and government resources for a Jurassic Park experiment. Fully. Right? Monroe County has given the final permission needed. What could possibly go wrong? We don't know, because EPA unlawfully refused to serialize and analyze environmental risks. Now, without further review of the risk, the experiment can proceed. So, firstly, they haven't even fully checked these mosquitoes over time. This is a new technology. It was only CRISPR was only created last year. And again, so they've obviously used that CRISPR in the vaccines, the splicey. And now, in less than a year again, they've genetically modified lab-grown mosquitoes that they haven't fully tested. They haven't checked the risks environmentally, and they've lab-grown 750 million of the fuckers, and they're going to release them into the environment, not knowing what that's actually really going to do. And what if, because obviously, right, I'll carry on, because this goes on to, I'll go on to this pros and cons of genetically modified mosquitoes. Because this is, again, a money maker, right? So Bill, my fave, he has funded this research. Not really research, because not much research has actually been done. And he's sold it to the county. And do you know what's interesting? Is I then search, right, who has this, because I thought, or maybe this is the first time I'm hearing of this. Surely there's nowhere else. But do you know where else has had genetically modified mosquitoes? Brazil and India. Does that not seem a coincidence, bearing in mind the both of those countries are suffering so badly with coronavirus right now, and that's mosquitoes could transfer that, couldn't they? And they've had over I'll read you the article on that. So this is since 2019. In 2019, they started releasing genetically modified mosquitoes in Brazil, in India, and there's a couple of other places. And there's over, I think there's I'll read you the thing in a sec. It's a lot. There's a lot. Coincidence? Let's see. Pros and cons of genetically modified mosquitoes. The fight against mosquitoes has been waging since the dawn of humankind. In fact, these pests are often considered the top natural enemy of humans, since they're vector species for a number of diseases. Through the centuries, humans have fought back against the scourge in one way or another. Some solutions have proven highly effective at combating mosquitoes, and others simply don't work. Regardless, scientists continue to develop new ways to get rid of mosquitoes, and one of the most recent is GMO mosquitoes. These lab-raised insects are then mixed in the wild population, where the two breed, and the resulting offspring are supposed to die off before maturity. GMO mosquitoes have their proponents and detractors. Supporters of the technology consider it a step forward. Critics say it's dangerous to manipulate DNA of any animal, and the experimentation could have disastrous consequences. Just want to say at this point, before I read these pros and cons, bearing in mind they have the technology to do this, and the technology to do this genetic modification to kill off babies before maturity, even if it's a mosquito, the basic technology of the DNA editing is the same. You see where that's a massive problem? Because if they can do it on a mosquito, they can do it on absolutely anything else. Because it's the same technology, it's the same technology, it's the same technology. So, pros. For the producers and supporters of GMO, this solution offers an environmentally friendly way of removing invasive mosquito species. So I'm going to do both sides. It's only fair. So, one, scientists say the introduction of GMO mosquitoes will lower the population of disease-carrying biting insects over time. 2, field testing of GMO has not found any significant impact on humans. What's because they've barely done any. 3, reviews suggest the loss of invasive mosquito species will have little to no effect on local environments that they didn't belong there to begin with. 4, the release of GMO mosquitoes relies on simple numbers game, overwhelming natural male mosquitoes and GMO male mosquitoes to outcompete them. Naturalists say invasive species of any kind must be eliminated for these environs at all costs. 6, no pesticides are added to the environment where they're using GMO mosquitoes. Seeding areas with GMO male mosquitoes are relatively easy and low manpower activity. The introduction of GMO mosquitoes can supplement existing mechanical efforts to control mosquito populations. Right. Cons. Much longer list. For the critics of GMO mosquitoes, these Frankenstein creatures pose an unquantifiable threat that may not have had appropriate checks or balances in nature. Damn right it hasn't. Here are some of their common complaints and concerns. 1, concerns that GMO mosquitoes may carry or develop unknown pathogens that will hurt humans. There you go. Critics say that there's not been enough testing or observation of GMO mosquitoes. There hasn't. Through the mosquitoes and introduced species, native species are now reliant on those for their diet. So what is it going to do? What is it going to do to their to the food chain? You don't know what is the ultimate effect on the food chain. They don't even know. Because obviously something will eat a mosquito, something will eat that, and so on. And if you've got genetically modified something at the beginning, who knows what that's going to do to the entire food chain? Right. So concerns that GMO mosquitoes may mutate into a stronger mosquito that can reproduce will possess an even more dangerous threat. Despite claims to the opposite, a new type of mosquito will be added to the environment under this GMO plan. Only areas where humans are present need to be sprayed, which reduces insecticide impact anyway. Most pesticides have been ruled safe by government. So why even risk a genetically modified mosquito release? Fear that despite the gene modification, some of the hatched GMO mosquitoes will survive into adulthood and breed. The cost of producing mosquitoes is so expensive and time consuming. So who's paying? You know what I mean? So they've created a technology that nobody really wants. It's not been tested properly. You don't know the full effects of, but the taxpayer is going to be paying for that to be 750 million of those to be spread in Florida, yeah? And whose benefits? Oh, Bill Gates. Of course he does. there are already numerous methods of destroying mosquitoes or protecting people from them, including a mosquito magnet mosquito trap. And that's just the last one there. Right? Seriously. These people have lost their minds. Like, genuinely. I've got the... so I'm going to put into here the link to the CRISPR technology. I'll just read a little bit of it. It's probably better to watch a video, and I might put a video on of what it does. But this was only discovered the beginning of last year, or at least the Nobel Prize for it was because it was obviously been in process for several years before that in terms of the creation of it. And the mere fact that they've done this, where is it? The modified mosquitoes released into Brazil. I just find it very coincidental that the two places that are having the most outbreak at the moment, or even over the last year, Brazil and India, and neither of their governments, want to go into lockdown, do they? Don't know. Just seems a little odd to me. So there's that. I thought that was an interesting story from World News. There was another, I mentioned the other day about cults. So there's this new one that's come to my attention, which there's a program on it on Vice. And this guy, he's not a doctor or anything, but he's got a huge following. And it started off with as being a spiritual thing. And this is why it's so dangerous. This is why you've got to just go with your own, just knowing yourself, doing your own research, and not just blindly following one person and one person's beliefs or teachings. Because if you just blindly follow that and don't question a thing, and if that one is wrong and they're just a manipulator or a narcissist, male or female, because narcissists are both, see how dangerous it is, how you can control people. You see it all the time, actually, more and more so now. And even if you think about it, I've got some videos on narcissists from, professors explaining what a narcissist is. It's not just about in a relationship. They're people that abuse their positions essentially to manipulate one or more for their own gain. And when you think about it on that level, think about how many there are right now in positions of power that are just, they're saying one thing and doing another. They're, everything that a lot of the people in governments all over the world right now, and they're all coming, it's just finding out on a daily basis, all of these stories about various different politicians from all over the globe that are just getting exposed bad for either lying or being, a paedophile or a sex trafficker, or, and up until then, people were, screaming their name, cheering them on, because they're masters at deception, pathological liars. And they're very good at it. They're just really, really good at it. And then it's hard to, when you find out the truth, it's hard to, it's hard to swallow, because it's like, hold on a minute, I've believed that guy or girl for however long, that they were doing the best for me, or working on my behalf, or whatever, and then actually it's all been a lie and it's all been a facade. It's hard to swallow. And I've got some videos, and this is going to upset some people, but I'm sharing things from all perspectives, because it's important to understand all points of view, because there's a whole heap of people who, and this is to do with Christianity, so, and I'm a spiritual person. My spirituality is my own. I don't confine it to one thing or another. It's just, it is what it is, and I don't try and make anyone else believe what I believe. And I don't think anyone else should either. And that kind of, trying to make people like Christianity is the one and the only, and that every other faith is not right, or if someone doesn't believe, then they're going to hell, and that kind of attitude, that's just destructive on so many levels. And when it's coming from let's not forget that so many wars through history have been as a direct result of religion. And think about the Crusades, all of the Crusades. Think about Queen Elizabeth and Mary Queen of Scots. What happened there? They were murderous, genocidal, psychopathic maniacs doing it under the guise, or with religion as their rationale, and I can't think of the right word, but at the same time being all puritanical. But the first most important one of the you know what I mean, is thou shalt not kill. And then they're traveling all over Europe, just killing everyone and everyone that doesn't believe what they believe. Well, that just is crazy. Even the Civil War, if you want to go there, even the Civil War in America is the same. They went around, so you got the English and the Americans and French, and then the Native Americans, and everyone's just killing Native Americans weren't killing it. They were the ones being killed, and everyone else was killing each other. And it was all over, land and religion, religious freedom. But you're killing each other. That's like it's the antithesis of what religion is supposed to stand for. No, about being caring and understanding, and helping each other, and loving one another, and unconditional love, and thou shalt not kill. But you're killing everybody. So this is what I'm saying. It's dangerous. You can't say one religion. You cannot say my religion's right and everyone else is wrong, because you can't. And what about all the other religion? What about all of the history pre-Jesus. What about, how do you explain the Anunnaki? How do you explain the Sumerians? These are all actual times in history. They all had gods. What about Greek gods? They aren't mythical. They're just as real as any other god to those people at that time. Because thoughts turn into things. You have to believe until you see it. Therefore, any person who believes in their religion, then it's real to them from their perspective at that point in time. So on that basis, then they're all real, or were at one point when people were believing in Greek gods. They were real then. And when Roman gods were around, well, they were real to them. So they're all real to the people who believe in them at the time that they believe in them. And no one is better or greater than the other. They all exist. And at the moment, when there's this real puritanical vibes coming from certain places, and it's definitely associated with conservative views and white supremacy, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's like, we're right and everyone else is wrong. Every other faith is wrong. Everyone who doesn't do what we say is wrong. It's like, no, we're not in those times no more, I'm afraid. So I'm going to put a link into these. What I watched it earlier. There was this woman who was a devout Christian for all of her life. Like she was brought up in a Christian family. You know, she went to a Christian school. She went to a Christian senior school. She went to, she was in church every second outside of that. And she kind of, her entire life revolved around her faith and her church, until she started asking questions about, certain parts of the Bible that didn't make sense. And her journey into understanding faith more, all denominations of Christianity, and ultimately the essence of, the truth of the Bible, led her to not being a Christian anymore. And so I'm not sharing this to be all like, oh no one should believe in Christianity, because people will believe what they want to believe, and that's absolutely their right. But it's also important because there are most definitely places in the world where views are suppressed. Other people's views are suppressed. And only this one view is sort of put on people. And then they, because that's the only one that they see and they're around, then it'd be natural to think that everything else is a bit weird. I can get that. But they don't know yet, because they haven't seen any of the other perspectives, or been around any of that knowledge to expand that view. So I'm going to put those in. So I hope everyone has a good rest of the day, evening, morning, wherever you are. I've got a webinar call in about half an hour myself, so I will love you and leave you, and I'll put all the links in as usual. I'm just trying to think of, oh yeah, I've got one for the Native American fam. You need to watch this. This is this woman oh, what's her name? Lauren Boebert. She was involved in. She was one of the women that won her seat and was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be bringing my gun strapped to Congress and all of that." And she's sponsored by the. I think she's sponsored by the NRA, and this is like an internal meeting that she's on, and she's talking about the pipeline, which is obviously important because it goes on to reserves. But she's trying to say that they want it. That was the importance of this. So I'm going to put all the links in. So love you, and I will see you tomorrow.